Since there isn't a video about removing a intake manifold from this OM647, I believe, this is a 2006 Dodge Sprinter, I decided I should make a little video. It's pretty straightforward. First, you take off the hard lines on the fuel rail. And I should just get out of the sun. Next, we unhook the wiring harness as well as the glow plugs. So that will give us enough wiggle room to slide out the fuel rail. And the fuel rail itself is connected with 3 bolts. I think 1 here and 2 in the back. And then next, we took off the manifold bracket. So I'll show you everything that was taken off. So here's the manifold bracket. This bolt at the top, at the back most to the firewall, is impossible to get a ratchet on, just a socket, but you can take vice grips and a socket, and that worked for me. We already talked about you take off the hard lines, then you unclip the return line, and then you unplug the 2 plugs on the fuel rail. And if you take out the glow plug connectors too, it should give you enough wiggle room on the harness to squeeze this rail out between the harness and the manifold, so that will slide out. Obviously, we took off some coolant hoses and air intake hoses. Here is the socket at the back that we took off. I think the fuel rail connects into that. But anything you can take off is definitely going to be easier to clean. For me, that was the biggest problem, was everything was gunked up, rusted. So taking off the intake manifold is a danger, because if something falls in there, you know, you're foobarred, right? So I spent a lot of time just cleaning. So once all that was taken off and these bolts were loosened or taken off, we had to unclip the fuel lines. So I'll show you the fuel lines, but some of them clip into the manifold, and then I think 2 into this bracket. Here's the fuel filter. So let me show you the fuel lines that we took off. Who's we? It's just me. So here are the fuel lines. This one we unplugged. That goes to this hose here on the bottom side, and on this top side connects to the return line. So that's what first thing we did, and then we unbolted it from the bracket, I believe. And also on this side there's a holder for the bracket to mount into. And then on this side here, I think goes to this connector on the manifold. And then the fuel lines, so this one here connects to the long fuel line, the topmost hose here. And then the hose beside it goes to the fuel filter. And then from the fuel filter, there's a small hose that goes to this pipe. So with this nice and loose, it goes under the thermostat and then connects to the pressure pump. You can see the 2 pipes right there. But it wasn't necessary to completely remove this. Just I needed the room so I can access the bottom bolts on the manifold. We also unplugged a lot of the connections on the wiring harness, so like the oil level sensor, thermostat, the fuel filter sensor, the starter wire, and that gives the harness a lot of room. And I think it's only connected by the AC connector right now. Obviously we unplugged the crank position sensor. That's the entire point of why I'm doing this. It's because If you can see there, I have a screw going into it. I plan to drill it out, put in the screw, and pop it out, hopefully. Yeah, so let's look at the manifold. So, when the manifold is in, it's in this position. And the fuel rail will be here. So you'll unplug the fuel rail, 3 bolts here. Like I said, we'll squeeze it out between the harness and the manifold this way. All the top bolts are very accessible on the manifold. Like I said though, you want to clean everything up. Keep in mind the service manual for removing this suggests partially draining the coolant, which I didn't read. So maybe do that instead of having a mess. But there is a coolant hole there that goes to the EGR. And I guess that's the exhaust hole for the EGR. God, this entire side of the manifold, I've heard people deleting the EGR. Might as well just cut it off as well, you know. You have that much easier space on the manifold later on. But yeah, anyway, the challenge which the service manual suggests to do is to take these bolts from the bottom, which means these 3 last ones especially. So you're gonna need like a very long extension, or you could just do what I did. I did everything from above. So you know, this one very easy, very easy. A little bit difficult with the bracket holding it on. So you got to remove the bracket first, then you can actually get to this one. And then these last 3, these last 2 long ones, you can actually see them from this gap here when they're installed. So you can guide a ratchet here with a little extension. This little extension, you can guide it there, and it's pretty easy to get in there and take them out. Now the last one there, also I was able to reach from above. When I say above, I mean I have my hand, you know, guiding the socket in from above, and my other hand from below. But you don't have to be under the van, but that's what the service manual recommends. I think this is a lot easier and quicker. And also I think if you open the hatch like I did trying to get to the crank position sensor, you'll be able to, ooh, look, a chipmunk. Anyway, you'll be able to maybe access from this side. So yeah, that's basically the entire process. Took about, I don't know, it took me, I think 3 hours yesterday, 3-4 hours. For me, I had to PV blast everything, wait for it, and clean everything up, vacuum as much as I can. You really don't want anything coming into the intake holes, anything dropping in, or you're going to be really out of luck. So yeah, that's basically it. I'll try to give you a better viewing of this engine bay. So with everything out, you can see the crank position sensor. You can get a fairly good angle at it with a drill. If you have a small drill, it's good. If you have a drill like mine, you can't really get perpendicular on it. So I don't know. I'll see if I can get it out this way. If not, I don't know what I'm going to do. Take out the transmission, I guess. But pain in my ass. So tools, vice grips. You know, you need a torque set. Most of these are E10. The ones on the fuel filter housing and the manifold bracket are E12. You need vice grips, you know, screwdriver, a hammer. So those Torx bolts on the manifold, some of mine were stripped, so I had to hammer it back into alignment. PV blaster, Nice if you have some way of marking the wires you're taking off and the hoses you're taking off. Yeah, basically pretty straightforward. Lots of room to work on. Don't know why there isn't a write-up or a video about taking an intake off this OM647. Most of the videos you'll find online are either about swapping this manifold to an earlier model version of this engine, or engine's already removed and then people are taking off the intake. And then while you're down here, easy access to clean the glow plug holes, remove those, some coolant pipes, oil filter, cooler housing.